All right, so now let's do Amazon S3. I would say it might be, I would say it's a little bit easier, honestly. All right, so go to that URL, console.aws.amazon.com, and that's sort of your home base for Amazon. Might be a good idea to bookmark this. I use this a lot. Amazon is a suite of services that they provide. They are basically infrastructure-based services. There's a lot. You can basically just see them all right here. We're going to use S3, which is a static hosting provider. It's not really a hosting provider. It's just static storage. I think S3 stands for Simple Site Storage, I think. I can't remember. But whatever, it doesn't say over here, but you can figure that part out. So what is S3? It's basically like a very, very technical Dropbox. Right? It's just a bunch of space where you can store your documents, files, whatever. Okay. And it's very, very cheap. So if you store like gigs of data, it's still going to be like pennies a day or a month. It won't be much at all. All right, I'm probably in the hundreds of gigs of data out there, and it's not. I'm still paying very small. Okay, so go ahead and make sure you're on this, and then go on Amazon S3. S3 revolves around a series of what's called buckets. And a bucket is kind of what it sounds like. It's just a storage unit. It's like a storage facility, kind of. Okay, those are called buckets in S3. So we're going to create a bucket. We're going to put our website on the bucket, and then we're going to make that bucket a live website. So S3 is a little bit different than GitHub Pages in that it's not based on Git at all. So you're really just moving files around. You're just putting a file on point A to point B, and then you're saying make that a website, and then it's a website. So I would say this might be easier. I don't know. It's up to you. Okay, so let's create our first bucket. So create a bucket. Portfolio site. Okay, and this is what I meant by those edge location regions. Don't worry about this. Just leave all the other stuff at the defaults. Okay. Create next. Oh, I already made one. So I'm gonna call this demo site.
Oh, so for bucket name, we don't use portfolio site?
It's saying I already have one called portfolio site, but I don't see it.
Okay. So what do we do? Use what they're using?
Put your initials before it. So I'm doing DK portfolio site.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not really sure why it's blocking me, but don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Okay, just leave all this at the defaults. Don't worry about this. Now here, this is important though. You see where it says Manage Public Permissions? Click on that. And make sure these two are set as read and read. Okay? That basically means you're letting other people access these files, which you're going to have to do if you want to make it a website, right? Otherwise, nobody can go to the website. Basically it. All right?
So only.
Okay, so again, that just means you're opening it up so people can access your files, which again, you're going to want to do, otherwise nobody can go to your website. So it's pretty straightforward. So go ahead and do that, and then just leave everything else at the defaults, and you're good to go. Now here it is. Here's the bucket I just created. You guys see that? So click on that. Click on your version of that. We got to make one more sort of like configuration change. In here, you click on Properties. Can you see where it says Static Website Hosting? That's obviously what we want.
I have a different page. So.
It should look like this. Right.
All right, got it. I was just trying. All right.
And then click on Properties. So by default, the static website hosting is not enabled. So we click on that, and we just enable it. So use this bucket to host a website. You guys see that? And it's going to ask you a few things. So here, they don't default to index.html. They ask you, what do you want the default to be? But that should be index.html. Basically, why would you ever not want that to be the case? And then here, just put in error HTML. Okay? So we're just configuring the bucket to host a website. That's all we're doing. We're just giving it some configuration options. We'll go ahead and save that. And now we're good. You should see that little check mark right here. That's good. That means your bucket is now a de facto website, just like your GitHub pages. All right? So now we go back to where it says objects. Think of the word objects as items. I don't know if that's just their vocabulary. They use objects. So you go here. And in here is where we just dump our stuff from point A to point B. So if we open up the portfolio site we made for GitHub, open that up. We want to move all these files from here to here. That's it. So let's do one at a time for now. Let's do the index.html first. Obviously, that's the most important one. So drag this over where it says upload, just like that. Okay? I find this process can be a little bit temperamental. Like you have to hit the right spot physically. So otherwise, it's kind of weird. So here, you press next. And then again, manage public permissions, same thing. Okay, so make sure they have read permissions.
So you're dragging the file onto the upload button?
Correct. I'll just do it again. So here, you just click the file and just drag it literally on top of where it says upload. Okay. Otherwise, it sometimes it acts a little bit inconsistent, but if you're putting it right there, it should be fine. And then again, open up the permissions. Press next, leave all that at the defaults, press next, again, leave the defaults, and then upload. It'll take literally a second because it's such a small file. And then we do the same thing for the images directory. Make sure it's above the upload button, just like that. Okay?
I have a question.
Yep.
So after it accepted the file, the index file, but then I get a new window about managing users and all the permissions, leave that as is?
No. So right here, you want to have these as read and read.
I see, and you do that every time you upload.
Correct. Otherwise, the files won't be accessible.
Got it.
Okay? So as you can see, Amazon is not quite as consumer friendly. It's not really meant to be. It's meant to be for professional developers. So, however, it's still pretty easy to get something up and running. So as long as you're steady about it, this should be a reliable process.
So
Yeah.
encryption none, storage
Everything else
class,
is fine.
everything's okay.
Okay, and don't forget the assets, otherwise you won't get your CSS and whatnot. Same everything. Just open up the permissions.
Got it.
Okay, and that's it. So you see what I mean by a very it's almost like Dropbox. You just move files around. That's it. Okay, if you go back to properties now and click on static website hosting, it'll give you a direct link to the site. There it is. Okay. And that's a live website.
Is there any way to change the link?
Oh, you mean, yeah, you can do it. I mean, I'm not going to go that day, but all that's possible. Right. That's all.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Let's get up.
You can do that and get up to it. Yeah. These are professional tools,
Yeah.
right? So whatever you can expect you should be able to do, you can do. Now let me tell you some of the infrastructure going on here. Again, it's worth understanding on a cursory level what's happening so you understand the distinctions, the differences, the pros and the cons. So right now, what are we doing? We're hosting a site on Amazon S3. We're basically assigning a bucket to a data center of our choosing. Now remember, at first it said USA East 1. That's this right here, US East 1. That's the Northern Virginia data center. Basically what we're doing, all of us are hosting our website in one box in Northern Virginia. So how is that different than the GitHub? It's not distributed. Right, this is all based in one data center. If that data center goes down, our website goes down. Does that make sense? So we're all basically hosting on one box. It might not be the same box. I'm sure there's 1,000 servers in Northern Virginia, but it's all there, right? So if there's an earthquake in Northern Virginia, our sites are going to go down. This actually happens about once or twice a year, where a data center will go down. It's usually US East 1. This is considered the least reliable, right? That's just how it is. So right now, we don't have distributed architecture. It's just once. It's kind of like some guy at a computer in Northern Virginia is hosting your website. I mean, that's a gross oversimplification, but you can think of it that way and you wouldn't be that far off, okay? So GitHub is a little bit more reliable in that sense. Does that make sense? Now, of course, Amazon is a raw infrastructure service, which means if you want, you can set it up so that this becomes distributed. Right? But the difference is you have to know how to do that. Right? You have to understand how that setup is supposed to work. So that's the drawback. So like, what's more powerful, GitHub or AWS? AWS, hands down. GitHub is built on AWS. But the drawback is with that, power comes responsibility. You have to know how to set all of these things up, right? So what would I do here? I would set this up behind what's called a CDN, right? A CDN, a content distribution network. The CDN would then distribute the traffic to a series of different servers around the world, the edge locations, right? And then based on where your user is physically located, your website would come from that closest physical location. That's what GitHub does for you. Does that make sense? Here, that's not happening, right? So you have to know how to do that, okay? So CDN, a couple popular CDNs are Cloudflare, CloudFront. These are two different companies. They sound the same, but those are CDNs that kind of manage that distribution architecture for you. All right? I'm going to add one more thing. Yeah?
One last question. So after you upload all the files, the index, images, and assets, I got a bad request error message. So when I went to the portfolio site on AWS, so I think I'm missing a step. So what do you do after you upload files?
It should be just ready to go. So if you're getting an error message, it might be just like a typo. It's typically something along those lines. It's typically like a careless error. But when you upload the file, it's like automatically the hosting is live.
So is there a link on this objects page where I could just go and preview?
Yeah. So here I'm on the entire bucket right now. Right? These are the files I have on my bucket.
Okay.
So you just want to make sure there's no make sure everything is lowercase and things like that. Just small details, things like that. Make sure there's no missing space. So one thing I didn't include was this file right here. This guy right here, single HTML. You may have done that, but I didn't. So let's go ahead and toss that up right now. So we just take that and just do the same thing. Bless you. And then let that go. That'll take literally 1 or 2 seconds. And now this file is now being hosted on the Amazon website. Okay, so once it's up, it's up. You don't have to refresh or anything like that. So here, if you go to the Amazon deployment, now we can access that file. So /single.html. And there it is. So before this wouldn't have worked, now it works.
So where is the Amazon deployment link, please?
If you go to properties and then static website hosting, it just gives it to you right there for free. Right here.
Okay. All right.
How's that going so far? Everyone got this working? Oops. Okay, so the Amazon sort of flow, it's actually, I think, a little bit more user-friendly because you don't need Git. You're just moving files from point A to point B. So it's kind of like just imagine putting files in your Dropbox and now you have a website. That's kind of how this flow works. Okay, you guys got it working?
So, so if it doesn't, I'm a little confused about what's the purpose of using Git then?
Oh, it's just preference. I'm just showing different options, that's all.
Oh, I see.
I'm just showing you here's option A, here's option B, and just discussing pros and cons.
Okay,
Just whichever one you like.
okay.
I'll tell you what the common uses are for GitHub pages. It's almost always, I've personally seen, usually portfolio sites, just a quick like info site, nothing too robust. More or less the same with Amazon, to be honest. If you're running a serious application, none of this would be the option. We would have to go to raw EC2 or maybe Heroku, depending on like the complexity. The other way around, Heroku is simpler, EC2 is more complicated. But these are just sort of quick, easy, like you need to just get something up out the door, like a landing page, a sign-up page, something like that. If you're hosting an event and you want a quick sign-up page, just boom, here you go. You can do it in a couple hours and then off to the next